I'm Sara Hallager. I'm the curator of birds here at the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute in Washington, D.C.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so this week we are going back to the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, and we're heading to the zoo campus in downtown Washington, D.C. to talk about a very, very special building. The new aviary, or birdhouse, that opened at the zoo that finished being renovated in 2023. And this is not just special because it's a super cool habitat, but also because the birdhouse won top honors for its exhibit category at the AZA annual conference in Tampa. If you listened to last week's zoo news, you already knew what I was going to say. So we're not just here to talk about a relatively new aviary, but we are here to talk about an award-winning birdhouse, and I am so excited to bring that to you. Sara Hallager does an incredible job talking about this, and I think you're going to really find a lot of cool stuff here. It's not just about the renovations to the building, but honestly to the philosophy that the National Zoo brought to its birdhouse. Getting rid of the old aviary and changing it to what it is now really changed the entire approach to birds at the National Zoo. And I'm really excited to share that with you. But of course, before I do, a couple of quick reminders. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok machine. And, if you have the opportunity to leave a review, give me a little 5-star rating or even write a review. It helps people find the podcast. So with all of that said, it is time to head to one of the coolest birdhouses in the country, the brand new aviary at the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute. Enjoy, y'all. Nice. And so, curator of birds, obviously, we're in the new aviary. I think we have a lot to talk about here. So how long have you been here?
I have been at the zoo since I started as a volunteer in 1984.
Wow.
Yep, and then I got hired in 1987. So pretty much most of the time, I started in a different part of the zoo when I got hired, but most of my career has been here at the birdhouse.
Interesting. That's really exciting because obviously this is a new aviary, new birdhouse, and so you've been here through all of that.
Yes.
Okay. So then let's talk about, first of all, when did the new facility open?
The birdhouse opened in March of 2023.
Okay. And how has it been received?
I think it's been received well. It's a big change from where the birdhouse was before we closed. So before we closed in 2018, it was a very traditional birdhouse. It was just showed birds from around the world, so Africa, Australia, Asia, South America, right? Any place other than North America, we exhibited birds. And that's a very traditional zoo exhibit. That's very typical of most zoos, I think, across North America.
Absolutely.
So when we were thinking about the new birdhouse, and this goes back to about 2004, that the zoo had identified that, okay, the birdhouse, it was an old facility, it was next on the renovation list. And so the time was then to sort of say, what do we want to do? We could totally rebuild the birdhouse and it would be great, and you could have parrots and penguins and owls and everybody would love it, right? But we wanted to take a slightly different direction. And so we met with we had many years of conversations with the Smithsonian's migratory bird team. And we really wanted to sort of tell the story of North American birds, because the story of North American birds is really important, and North American birds are declining just like birds around the world. So I like to talk about that when people come to the zoo, they know a lot of things about animals from all around the world, but not so much about animals here in North America. And we wanted to change that. So we wanted to tell the story of North American birds, this big decline that's happening across different bird species, and show people that conservation's easy. There's stuff that they can do to make a real difference in saving birds. So that's what we did.
Now, you said 2004, and this opened in 2023.
Yes.
I'm not great at math, but that sounds like a long time to me. How did that take almost 2 decades to happen?
So the idea was sort of hatched, as we like to say, in 2004, but it really wasn't on the project list really to start for a number of years. A number of things, and back in 2004, I would say I was sort of peripherally involved with the early discussions. I would say conversations really got going again in 2008. I remember seeing paperwork from back then that the birdhouse was going to open, I don't know, something like 2015 or something. Construction in federal facilities can take a long time. And then there's the whole funding aspect, right? So the zoo needed to secure funding through capital funding, through donations. So I think the idea was this kind of floated around for a few years. In 2008, it was kind of, reinvigorated, but it really didn't get going until around 2015 when we really started design in earnest. Yeah, so 2018 so when we closed, so the design was finalized by then. And construction just takes a long time. This was a complicated facility that included, it's a very unique facility. It wasn't just, 4 walls and a roof. It has a lot of specialized features that make it what it is. That's great for the birds. So we also were building through COVID, right? So, and then all the supply chain issues. So there were a number of things that I think, made it take such a long time. But so it is a long history, but it has been a slow but steady progress, I think, over the years.
That's cool.
And not to jump in and take over your interview,
please.
But the building was very old. I mean, it was a historic building, right? How old was the building?
The house was, if you come in the front of the birdhouse, where the historic arch is kind of where the front of the old birdhouse was. So the birdhouse was built in 1928. And that historic arch that everybody gravitates to when you walk in is one of the few 4 elements remaining from the original birdhouse. It was renovated again in the 60s. It was a fairly substantial renovation. That's when the Great Flight Aviary was constructed, which at the time was considered quite modern and won several awards. So it was, at the time that the birdhouse closed in 18, it was about 50 years. So it was about, built in the 20s, renovated in the 60s. So it was like every 50 years or so, it seemed to need this renovation. So it would have been a lot cheaper to tear it down, remove everything and start with a blank piece. But because it was considered a historic building, they had to retain the original 4 walls, which are still there in the bird-friendly coffee farm. And so that, I think, was also part of the challenge, working around those, which they're beautiful brick walls. It's kind of too bad that we couldn't leave them exposed, but that wouldn't have been sanitary, probably. It was beautiful brick. But yeah, I think that was sort of part of why it took so long, is to kind of, but it was a Oh, it was basically a floor-to-ceiling gut, except these 4 brick walls that were standing. It was kind of surreal looking at it.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
No, and that arch is beautiful. We already have interrupted people trying to take photographs in front of it today because we were walking and not paying attention.
Yeah, it is
quite
beautiful.
The selfie spot and the family photo spot.
And they restored it. The Smithsonian people that do that kind of work came in and restored it and cleaned it and brightened up the colors. And yeah, but it was during construction taken apart and then reassembled.
Wow.
Yeah.
Obviously we're here to talk about zoo-y stuff, but I find like museums are so cool in the way they do that. And like, it is really fascinating thinking about the fact that y'all are the Smithsonian, even though you're a zoo. So you guys have people that are experts at that and like, take apart and put together dinosaurs and stuff. That's a really cool aspect that I kind of never really thought about here, because I know it's the Smithsonian's National Zoo,
right?
But at the same time, to me, it's a National Zoo. It's a zoo, but that's really cool. That's a really fun aspect.
And the Smithsonian Historical Society, that may not be the right name, but they actually had quite a bit of influence on the way the birdhouse looked. So yeah, it's a significant consideration in construction on zoo property. Yeah.
That's very...
Which many buildings around this park are historic.
Right, yeah. I know this place has been here for a minute. So.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the innovative things that that make this aviary what it is. This place is incredible. I even heard a rumor that somebody who works here, one of the areas here, it's their favorite place in the whole zoo. We won't say who because it's private information, but she's sitting in the room and she's not yours. So, yeah. But yeah, so talk to me about just what's gone into the building itself.
Quite a lot. So from the early days, we wanted the new buildings. The old building was very traditional. You walked in, you walked by the birds. The new building is you walk in with the birds. So that was the first big change, was that we wanted this immersive feeling that you were in, with the birds, just as you would be out in the wild. One of the first things I think you notice when you walk in the building is it's very light-filled, and if you look up, you'll see a skylight. Those skylights are throughout each aviary. It's a special kind. It's called ETFE, which is this abbreviation for this word, this long word that's like 36 letters long that nobody can pronounce. But it lets in both kinds of UVA and UVB light. That's very important for birds. Birds see UV colors that we can't. So those are important triggers for breeding, for just general health. In the case of the coffee farm, it's great for the plants. So one of the really important features of this building is this skylight that's present in all aviaries. Other features, I think, include so what people see when they walk in is this 3 aviaries. Below us, there's a whole basement. There's a whole nother level.
Really?
Sort of the guts of the birdhouse. And that's where, I guess, a lot of the magic happens, right? So you've got your normal stuff like boilers and plumbing stuff, but you also have all the systems that sort of keep the water clean and pure, right? So if you go in the Delaware Bay Aviary, you'll see one of the first things you walk in is a big saltwater pool with horseshoe crabs and fish. Well, all the water systems you see are all filtered. So all the piping is all going down to the basement. It's going through filters and sanitation and things like UV sterilizers and bead filters, and then it's all brought upstairs and recycled and pumped through. And those systems run 24/7, 365 days a year. That's something the birdhouse didn't have before. Also, the house is on carbon-filtered water. So those are some of the things that I think people won't necessarily know when they come through. Other features, obviously the walk-through elements, the very up-close feeling that you get for the birds, right? You can really see the birds up close. You don't, if you come through the birdhouse, there's no way anybody could ever say where are the birds, right? Because there they are.
That is very true.
Right? So that was a feature I think that maybe not necessarily unique to all zoos, is this really up close and personal look at the birds. I don't know, what else? one of the goals of the birdhouse was to tell people how they can help birds. Mm-hmm. And so, again, a very prominent feature when you walk in, you'll see a lot of glass. And glass, in and of itself, kills billions of birds a year just in the United States alone. Bird strikes are a huge issue. So we really wanted this birdhouse to be how to sort of tell people how to live bird-friendly. It's easy to do. You can... Well, again, one of the first things you see when you come in is glass with lines on it, and you're like, well, what are those lines there for? They actually prevent birds from hitting glass. Now, this is a commercial building. I'm not sure if that's the right word. A building that was built with bird-friendly glass. No one at home is going to do that. But at home, what you can do is there's a pane of glass behind you. You can, and if you walked around the park, I don't know if you pointed out all the dots on the glass, but you can people at home can make their windows at home not have birds hit. And that's through simple things like putting small dots on the glass that are spaced 2 inches apart, hanging what's called a copian bird savers, which are basically cords that blow in the wind. You can close your shades, so they don't see the reflection. There's a number of things people can do, and that's kind of what this house was hopefully would inspire people to do, was make your glass bird friendly. Here we're sitting in the observatory. We have a lot of messages on the there's an area behind us where you see a stuffed cat, and people may say, well, why is there a stuffed cat? And so we talk about how important it is to keep cats indoors. I have a cat. I love cats. My kitty stays indoors because free roaming cats kill, again, another billion birds just in the United States alone. Here also in the observatory, we have a bird-friendly coffee tasting once a week. If you're an adult and you drink coffee, it's the easy thing you can do is switch to bird-friendly coffee. We talk about outside, when you arrive, there's a large garden area. We talk about native plants. Birds in the United States have evolved with these native plants, so it's important to plant native plants and not use pesticides and herbicides. Avoid single-use plastic. So there's a lot of easy messages built into this house that are great for people that, it's not, conservation is, you don't have to do all of them. Even if you just did one thing, like that's going to really make a difference to help save birds. And whether it's, a bird from North America, or if you're from another country and you visit, you can take these same, actions with you back home and apply them at home wherever you come from. So that's one of the great things I love about this house is just helping people understand what they can do. Because sometimes I think conservation feels a little overwhelming and people think there's nothing that they can do, but there's a lot of things people can do.
Absolutely. That was one of the things. So as I started this, my background is that I'm a professional musician, and I fell in love with zoos and aquariums growing up, and then I started visiting them as I toured. And so, I didn't know anything about anything, right? I was the king of single-use water bottles. On the road, I'd buy a 12-pack and shove them in my bunk and just, I'd toss them out. I try to recycle, but maybe. And as I started going to facilities and learning all of this stuff, it became such a passion. And now I have my reusable water bottle, my reusable bags, and we grow native plants, and we let our grass get a little too crazy to help out some pollinators and stuff. And what I love about what you're sharing is that they're all such easy changes, and they really are something anyone can do, something that's not going to make a huge difference. Heck, I didn't even know about the fact that closing your blinds could help birds, but I'm basically a hermit when I'm home, so I already do that. Conservation by wanting to keep the world out.
There you go.
But you're right, because when I first got into all of this stuff, it was so disheartening to me because, my favorite animals are red pandas, which live in Nepal and China and stuff. And how do you help them? Yeah, I donate to Red Panda Network, and now I'm involved in some other cool efforts like Safe Red Panda now that I'm more in this world. But I was I can't held animals. And then I started learning about these things that I could just help in my backyard. And that's cool. And also means cutting the grass less. So like very positive all around. I love that the messaging here is so focused on that. I think that's a really beautiful thing. Now we've talked a lot about, the fact that there are North American birds here. We've used that as a very big term, but let's bring it down a little bit. Let's talk about some of the birds that are here and what it means to take care of them in these open air aviaries, because I cannot even process what must go into all of that.
Each aviary is a little different. So when you enter the birdhouse, the first aviary you will encounter is the Delaware Bay. So each aviary kind of focuses on a different story. Delaware Bay talks about the importance of stopover points for migrating birds, and we use shorebirds to tell that story. The bird, I don't even know how to phrase this. The birds are, by and large, they couldn't really care, right? So they're sensitive to the fact that there's people in their home, but they're also, they know that people are here, and my safe spot is over here. If you walked through the Delaware Bay, especially depending on the time of day when the keeper might put out some food, those birds they can be about 3 feet away and not care at all that there's people looking at them. You can have big cameras looking at them, flashes going off. They're fairly bulletproof. That didn't happen by accident. That took a lot of almost about 4 to 5 months of acclimation to get these birds used to people walking through. There's walk-through aviaries all around the world, but usually they're much larger. These are fairly small, intimate spaces, and so it actually was an interesting process to get the birds used to people coming through the house. So when the construction was finished and it was turned over to animal care, we then began to put the birds in the aviaries. And it was great, right? Because it was just them and us. There was just a couple people. But we knew that we were opening in March, and so we spent about 4 months or so starting to build up this acclimation process. We started with just a few people, and then and these were all just, people that worked here at the zoo. And then we brought in people wearing funny hats, or people pushing strollers, or, a big stuffed dog or something, right? And then we brought in real dogs, and we sort of gradually got these birds used to people coming through the house. So, I guess, John, to answer your question, what's it like to take care of them? And then the ducks couldn't really care, right? They just go where they want to go.
Yeah, the ducks are like right there.
They're right there.
It feels like you can reach out and touch. A shouldn't, B couldn't.
Right.
Move away from
right.
it. But it literally, like when we just did our walkthrough, one of the ducks with the blue bill was like, 5 inches from me and not reaching out, but just like right there on the edge. It was amazing.
The ducks actually require a little bit of babysitting, or duck sitting, I guess, if you will, in the spring, because in the spring they kind of like, love is in the air, and then they want to breed, and they kind of like, this is my home. Like, I'm a male ruddy duck. You're referring to the male ruddy duck with the blue bill, and my female's over there, and I'm just going to go get her. And so we do a little bit of babysitting in the spring. But after breeding season settles down, then things are better. But each aviary is a little different in how we take care of it. So I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for.
Here's my question. Let me give you a little bit more of a detailed question. So as we're walking through, right, there are a couple of different, like you said, there are the different aviaries here. And there's the one in particular that, again, someone really likes. That is a 2-story aviary with a lot of room and a lot of trees and a lot of really small birds. I have no idea how many birds are in there, but I assume y'all do. And I know that as a keeper staff, you have to do husbandry. You have to figure out diet. I don't know if there are any breeding programs for any of these birds, but if so, there's all these considerations, and yet these birds are just there in this space living together. So how do you make sure they're eating? How do you make sure they're healthy? How do you make sure breeding stuff is okay, if that's a thing. Just like all of those things that normally, when you think about a zoo, you walk into the habitat, you put the food in the bowl, or you put it in front of the animal, and you say boom, and you separate the ones that can't breathe, like all that easy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got, I don't know how many birds, like I said, in that one room, but it's a lot. I know it's a lot. And so how do you control all of that?
So the coffee farm, the bird-friendly coffee farm, is mainly focused on neotropical migrants, mainly songbirds. There's approximately 80 birds in there at the moment. Approximately, because it's breeding season right now. So we've got babies hatching all the time. So it could be 80 today, and it could be 82 tomorrow if we have more indigo buntings hatch or something. The keepers. Actually, I'm rather in awe of how they do it, because I don't know how they can find all those birds every day, but they do. They are able to get their eyes on, for the most part, all 80 birds every single day. So they have this very elaborate check sheet, and over the course of the day, they check off. Now, some of these birds, like the indigo bunting, there might be 20 indigo buntings in there, and all the birds are banded. So with the indigo buntings, and there's only so many color bands that you can choose from to band birds, but they've got different color combinations, and they're like, okay, this morning I saw blue and light blue and pink yellow and green blue, and I'm like, it's amazing, but they can do it. And so, but because we have keepers dedicated to each aviary, like they're experts in these aviaries, and they know these birds inside and out. They know their personalities, they know their idiosyncrasies, they know where they like to eat. They like, blue indigo bunting likes to eat at this fruit cup, and yellow blue and bunting likes to eat at this fruit cup. And so they're also able to get these birds to sit on a scale and get weights. Amazing, right?
That's
so you get a little indigo bunting who weighs 18 grams will voluntarily sit on a scale to eat some waxworms.
And that means there was some training done there, because
there was.
It's not a natural behavior.
No. But so food, we worked for so during the construction we were building up the collection, and so we had birds all over the park. We had birds in every corner of this park, ready to move back to the house. During that time, we perfected the diet, so we worked very closely with our nutritionist. To some degree, feeding a bird, like we know how to feed birds, but a lot of these birds, especially the songbirds, are insectivores. So we had to sort of reformulate diets, working in close collaboration with the nutritionists. All these birds came through quarantine before coming on exhibit. So the diets they're fairly actually standardized. They basically contain some sort of nutritionally complete pellet, a lot of bugs, which changes seasonally. So right now we're going through about like 80,000 crickets a week. It's insane. Crickets come on Thursdays. Keepers hate cricket days. I mean, it is a production. There's about 20 tanks, big plastic bins lined up on the floor, and they just sort and clean the crickets and get them set up for the week.
Oh gosh, smell too. I know cricket smell from having.
Our crickets do not smell, because we are meticulous about keeping care of them.
I just mean when they come in, though.
They do smell when they come in.
That's what I'm talking about, those Thursdays. I'm sure y'all are great. I do the same thing when I used to do crickets. But man, I could smell that smell when I would get like 100 crickets, and now I'm picturing 80,000.
So some people actually have like cricket allergies. So
really?
We go through a tremendous amount of bugs, because for our birds in the coffee farm, they're mostly insectivores. So about 80,000 crickets during breeding season. Thousands and thousands of what's called waxworms that come in a little white cup with shavings that have to be sorted through shook through a strainer to sort out the shavings so the birds don't eat the shavings. Mealworms, that we go through the thousands of mealworms. They all have to we go through a 3-day gut loading process. Gut loading meaning that the mealworms are eating a nutritionally complete food that has all the calcium and nutrients that the birds need. The cricket, the bug care alone here is almost a half-day job.
Oh my God.
So we rely heavily on volunteers and interns to help us clean the insects, like you say, sort these waxworms. It's constantly, who has time to sort waxworms? It's a forever job. So that's the level of care. And then, of course, you put out these beautiful sorted waxworms, and the birds eat them up in a second. And they have no clue what it took to provide them with this delicious treat. But yeah,
so much though.
It's a ton. It drops in the non-breeding season, but that's what we're dealing with right now. But it's successful. We've got a lot of breeding going on in the coffee farm. We're the only facility in the world that's bred ovenbird, which is a species of warbler. We've got Swainson's thrush in there, indigo bunting, rose-breasted grosbeak. So our ducks kind of had a lot of breeding. We had a lot of ducklings going on in April and May. Ducklings died down, and now it's the songbirds' turn. So we haven't yet been successful breeding shorebirds, but we're working towards that.
Cool, very cool. And when you're breeding these birds, and you're the only facility that's had success, how much are you able to then contribute to the general knowledge? Are you guys sharing that information? Is it, are you helping other facilities? How does that work?
We are helping other facilities. So we have a very strong songbird breeding program. We've been able to breed birds for our own collection, but also send birds to other zoos. So we actually have several songbirds heading out to some zoos in Ohio next week that were born here. We are constantly writing stuff up and sharing it with our colleagues in simple things like newsletters that are among the professional people that want to know various networks through the AZA. So we so much documentation, right? Because so many, especially with these songbirds, so much of this says, we were the first to breed orchard orioles. We were the first to breed ovenbird, Swainson's thrush, indigo bunting. What else am I forgetting? We weren't the first to breed common yellowthroat, but we we're among the few that have bred them. But the point is that there's so many of these species that just, one, have never been kept in human care before, or two, let alone breed. So we're writing all this stuff down. I don't know what we're going to do with all of it, but it is meticulously documented for purposes probably yet to be even known, right? And because someday we kind of have this, birds are in such decline, and you don't want to get to like a California condor situation where there's 20 birds left in the wild. And so, we're trying to think, and this will be long after I'm retired, but some of these songbirds, wood thrush, for example, we breed so many wood thrush here, they're like rabbits, right? We had to kind of shut them off this year because we were breeding so many wood thrush, we just had to stop. And so we put something called a dummy egg, which is basically a fake egg in a nest. It looks like the real egg. And we take the real egg before the chick is developed and don't let it hatch. But we don't want to get in a situation, so say there's, and I'm just making up this number, don't quote me on it, but say there's 30 million wood thrush. I have no idea what the real number is. Sure. People think, oh, well, there's 30 million wood thrush. They're never going to go extinct. But think about the passenger pigeon. There were billions of those birds and they went extinct. So someday, somebody may look at our records and say, wow, the National Zoo did really good at breeding wood thrush. Here's all the notes, this is possible. We can save wood thrush because there's only, I'm just making this up, 200 left in the wild, right? Because they've been decimated by whatever reason. So we're trying to be a little proactive in our thinking and sort of trying to figure out this breeding now while birds are still common, and then we can apply it. Mm-hmm. So, we can apply what we know about breeding ovenbirds to maybe more threatened or endangered warblers. And so that's kind of how we are sort of looking at things as well.
That's really cool. Yeah, and that's really important. I think more and more we've realized that we need to save species before we need to save species. And that is really important. And I remember not only you're talking about, glass kills a billion birds a year in the States alone, and cats kill 1 billion birds. And I remember I did a story recently on a Zoo News episode, and I might be making up this number, but hey, we're making up numbers. But I think, wasn't it, there was one building that killed 1 million birds in Chicago in one night? Like something happened, and it was like...
It was 1,000 birds.
It's one
That's
building.
a lot of birds.
Yeah, but when you apply that to all the buildings, I mean, granted, that doesn't... But yeah, it's I just remember being... I think it's 1 million in my brain, because I remember even 1,000 is so much for...
It was horrific.
In one night. And again, I know it doesn't happen every night, but that's 365. It happened for 1 year for one building. What the heck? Like, even when you say if there's 30,000 or whatever, and I know you don't know, but those numbers drop really fast when you're talking about losing billions of animals annually. Yeah. So I think that is really important. I think it's so cool that this place, the thing that I love about this building is that it's all very focused on native stuff, right? Like you said. But it feels so... exotic's not the right word.
No, exotic is a good word. So a lot of people, it's just backyard birds. But actually, they're not backyard birds, because they're actually birds that spend most of their time in the tropics. So they are actually exotic birds that just happen to fly north to breed and then return to the tropics. So in the case of the coffee farm, they actually are exotic birds. And, I'm sorry, but when was the last time you saw a, yellow-rumped warbler in your backyard? That's pretty exotic to me. I've not seen one in my backyard.
Right.
So, and everything in here is migratory. So these birds are, traversing the hemisphere all the time. They are exotic,
Yeah,
I think.
Cool, because that's how it feels to me, so that makes sense. I'm glad. I was like, it doesn't feel like the right word, but thank you. It is the right word. I should stop questioning myself. But no, that's very cool. And so I will tell you that I had my friend Chloe came here last week. I was visiting a friend in D.C. and was very excited to get to go to the zoo. And I asked her what her favorite part was, fully expecting, because she's not like a big zoo person, so we all know it's the giant pandas. And she goes, the birdhouse. And I was like, yes, I will an interview in a week and I will tell them that.
Nice.
And I think that speaks to how incredible this place is, because, like you said, it's native animals, which a lot of people don't come to see. And it's a little off the beaten path. It's not super hard to find or anything, but you gotta want to come here. But people do. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. I came during the member-only previews, and one of my keeper friends somehow got me in, because I'm like, okay. And I was blown away then, and coming back, every time I come back, I'm just blown away by this building. And it's funny because it's so loud. I mean, they're not loud songbirds, but they're songbirds. They're singing.
It's very loud right now in the coffee farm. You could say. I mean, it is loud. Yeah.
Well, I also spend a lot of time with so it's not loud in that regard, but it is. There's a lot of noise going on, but it's so peaceful. I love it up here. Especially on a really hot, muggy day, hypothetically. You can come in. It's a cool place. You can be really close to animals, and it feels like you're in nature. And then a field trip comes through and you remember that you're really not in nature. But I think you really nailed this building, which is very cool. And then there are birds outside of the building too.
Yes.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
If you walk around the outside of the birdhouse, it actually is also a lot of birds from North America. It's not completely North American, but we have birds that are found, for example, in South America, like greater rhea. We've got whooping cranes, which are a great conservation story. One of our most popular exhibits is the turkey exhibit. People just love those turkeys. They're funny, they're comical, they're active, noisy. They're in with some other native birds like sandhill crane and Ross's goose. We have barred owl up here. And then we have a few, and also we have American flamingos, which are also native to the Americas. And then we have a few non-North American animals, so cassowary, which are from Australia, cory bustards, which are African, and I'm trying to think, that might be it that's not from the Western Hemisphere. So, and that kind of was not super intentional. It just sort of happened, but it does tie the birdhouse story together nicely with sort of this focus on North American bird species. The birdhouse itself is focused on migration. Outside, there are some of those species I just mentioned do migrate, but they tend to be more non-migrants. So while the house is very focused on migration and all the great things that go around it, there's also, well, why don't birds migrate? There's that whole story too. So obviously the flamingos are immensely popular, probably the most popular exhibit outside, but man, those turkeys, they're pretty popular as well.
Dude, turkeys are cool. I've gotten to meet a couple of ambassador turkeys, and they're like legit fun to play with.
Yes.
Again, not something I would have expected to say before doing this, but
they are very funny. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plus you get to say the word snood when you talk about it.
Do. Yes, snood is a great word.
Yes, it really is. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to say about the birdhouse, the birds, the staff?
I've been involved with this birdhouse for basically my whole career. Because when I came to the birdhouse, I started in '87. By the time I got to the birdhouse in 1990, well, I didn't like birds. I never liked birds. So when you're in this profession, you tend to be a bird person, a mammal person, a reptile person, or a fish person. Well, I was always mammal person. And I worked at another part of the park that I didn't like, and I wanted to get out. And the only place open was the birdhouse. And so I kind of got stuck at the birdhouse. Well, within a very short period of time, I immediately fell in love with birds. I don't know anything about them, but I immediately fell in love with them. And here I am 38 years later, right? I've seen the evolution of this whole house and this shift towards the new focus of the birdhouse. So early in my early days with the birdhouse, I very much gravitated towards the big birds. Excuse me, the ratites, right? Cassowaries, rheas, cory bustards, flamingos, cranes. Those were birds. And it was only through this birdhouse renovation and it finally just kind of clicked, where it was like, I get it. I get the story, this decline of North American birds, the migratory songbirds, like that I couldn't tell you a thing about, right, 20 years ago. I finally got it, and it literally changed my trajectory of my career. So now I'm co-chair for the AZA North American Songbird. It's SAFE, Saving Animals from Extinction, North American Songbirds. So I co-chair that.
We always have to say SAFE first.
You have to say SAFE.
We get yelled at if we don't.
Yeah, SAFE North American Songbirds. Yeah. But I mean, I would have never thought that, right, 20 years ago. But that's when you talk about, inspiring people, and like this birdhouse has inspired me, because I love every bird, and everybody asks me like, what's your favorite bird? And I'll never actually say, because I kind of joke that if I said that, then the other birds would feel bad. So, but I really do like all birds. And that was an appreciation that in the early days I don't think I had, that I do have now.
I mean, that's really important to be able to inspire you, a member,
a bird keeper, right?
Here for a while.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah.
I'll also tell you that I've interviewed, a lot of bird keepers over the years, and I think exactly one of them started off as a bird person.
Mm.
It's like the story, and it's like, I'm not really a bird person, and then you meet birds, and you're like, oh,
yeah, really cool.
I also didn't really like birds until I started doing some training with some, and now I'm wildly passionate.
I still can't go out and listen. I still can't bird by ear. That's never a skill I've been able to pick up. But I can go outside and I can at least identify a bird. I'm not a birder. I don't go birding, but I certainly can tell you what birds are out there with binoculars. That is a skill set I certainly never had before.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. And then to completely ruin the mood, it's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
So, in the early days, I started here at the zoo. I worked up at the hospital. And and I had been here maybe 3 days. And there was a tree kangaroo that he had tree kangaroos climb.
Oh, yeah.
And he was in a big cage, and he was climbing up top. And for some reason, I was told to kind of bring him down. And I tried to grab onto they have like long tails, and I was trying to kind of grab his legs and pull him down. And he just pooped on me. I mean, face, body, everywhere, right? And it was totally disgusting. And at the time, my ride home had been a keeper who had been in the profession probably 15 years, and I was complaining about this gross tree kangaroo, what he did to me, and this person just said, yeah, well, get used to it. You want to be a zookeeper? That's part of the job. So there have been many other gross stories since then. For example, picking up, going in the cassowary yard and finding a pile of cassowary poop that we didn't know was there, and just about tossing my cookies because it stunk so bad.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, yes, many gross poop stories.
Poop story.
The amazing part of that is that I have 4 animals that are my top 4, and tree kangaroos are in them. And I'm a member of Safe Tree Kangaroo, and I could not love that animal more. So to come to a bird interview and get a tree kangaroo bonus really made me happy.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, and thanks for doing this interview. It's been a lot of fun.
My pleasure, John. Thank you.
And of course, I have to say this is a bit of a bittersweet episode here because, the federal government is currently shut down, and we're about a week away from the National Zoo being closed to the public until that situation is taken care of. Now, obviously, the animals are taken care of in the best way because zookeepers and the other staff are considered essential. Not all of the staff, but all of the animal care staff are considered essential workers. But keep in mind, that means that they'll be doing their work without receiving compensation until the government reopens. Now, at that time, they will get their back pay, but, in this industry, there are a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck. So I hope sincerely that the federal government figures it out and takes care of these incredible people like Sara, who you heard, and so many of the other incredible people that we've had on from the National Zoo, and so many other people that I know there that I can't wait to bring onto the podcast as this relationship continues to grow. So, it's nothing that the zoo can do, but man, I really hope the federal government figures it out. So, with that said, as you know, I love the Smithsonian, and I'm so grateful to have this lovely relationship with them now. And I promise to keep bringing you cool content from this amazing facility, again, when it's like open and stuff. So don't forget that you can support the podcast for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari, as have many, all of my patrons, including my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Meow. And with all of that said, we'll be back here on Friday with another episode of Zoo News. And until then, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.